Welcome back to The Explainer. So, today we're diving into something I think we've all wondered about. Is social media actually designed to make us feel bad?
You know the feeling, right? You jump on your phone to scroll for just a few minutes. Maybe an hour goes by, and when you finally look up, you don't feel more connected. You actually feel kind of crummy, a little anxious, maybe a bit insecure, or just plain frustrated. So, what is going on there?
And look, if that's you, you are far from alone. This number here, 41%, that's how many people in the US say they just flat out don't trust what they're seeing on social media. And I mean, think about it. If you can't even trust the information you're consuming, how could that not feel bad? All right, so let's really dig into this feeling. We're going to start by unpacking these psychological hooks that are, and this is the key part, intentionally designed to keep us glued to the screen, even when it makes us miserable. Okay, first up, let's talk about your brain. Every time you get a like, a share, a comment, your brain gets a little hit of dopamine. That's the feel-good chemical. It's the exact same reward system that gets people hooked on slot machines in Vegas. These platforms are basically built like a casino, engineered to create this craving that makes you pull that lever or, refresh that feed over and over again. And then you take that dopamine loop and you pour gasoline on it with this thing we all know, FOMO. The fear of missing out. It's that little voice in your head that says, hey, everyone else is out there having more fun, living these amazing lives. And that feeling, it's a huge driver that keeps us locked in, terrified we're going to miss something. So what's the fallout from all this? Well, it's pretty serious. You're basically comparing your behind-the-scenes footage to everyone else's highlight reel. And that constant comparison, it can lead to some really tough stuff. Feeling like your life isn't good enough, feeling more alone, and for a lot of people, it can seriously ramp up depression and anxiety. But here's the thing, these bad feelings don't just stay inside our own heads. They have a way of spilling out, and they can fuel a much bigger, uglier problem, all the toxicity we see online. So how does that jump happen? How does feeling bad turn into acting badly? Well, researchers actually have a name for it. They call it community brutalization. It sounds intense, and it is. It's what happens when being hostile and nasty online stops being a rare thing and just becomes normal. It becomes the default way people in that community talk to each other. And this brutalization usually plays out in a few predictable ways. First, you've got what's called sadistic entertainment. That's basically getting a kick out of watching someone get publicly humiliated. Then there's clan warfare, where these online tribes are just constantly at war with each other. And last, you have popular justice, which is a nice way of saying mob rule, where the crowd enforces its own brand of justice through public shaming. And this is a really fascinating way to visualize the problem. It shows that this toxicity isn't just about one person sending a mean tweet. It's layered. You have the obvious stuff, the direct attacks you can see, but underneath that, you have these invisible cultural norms that basically say, yeah, this is an okay way to behave here. It's a problem that goes way deeper than just a few bad actors. So what's pouring fuel on this fire? What's making it all so much worse? Well, there's this powerful, invisible engine working behind the scenes, amplifying all the negativity. And that engine is the algorithm. And look, this isn't just some vague idea. There was an actual controlled study done on Twitter, back when it was still called Twitter, and the results were crystal clear. The algorithm, the thing that decides what shows up in your feed, was actively, systematically pushing angry, hostile, and politically divisive content to the top. And this right here, this shows the central paradox of social media. On one side, you have what the algorithm pushes: anger, negativity, division. Why? Because it gets clicks, it gets engagement. But on the other side, you have what we, the users, say we want: real connection, positive stuff, respectful debate. It's a total mismatch between what the machine is built to do and what we actually want from it. So that begs the big question, right? If the algorithm is pushing all this stuff that we claim to hate, why on earth is it built that way? Well, as always, you just have to follow the money. And the answer really couldn't be simpler. Engagement equals profit. That's it. The whole business model is about one thing: grabbing your attention and holding onto it for as long as humanly possible. Because the longer you look, the more ads they can sell. And it just so happens that the best way to glue our eyeballs to the screen is to make us angry. And to make sure we stay hooked, these platforms are loaded with these tricky, manipulative design features. You know what I'm talking about. The infinite scroll that never ends, videos that just start playing on their own, that little pull to refresh gesture that feels like a slot machine.
They are all designed to get around your rational brain and turn scrolling into a mindless, compulsive habit. So this is really the bottom line. The whole system is built on a massive conflict of interest. What the platform wants, more engagement, more profit, is often the exact opposite of what's good for us, our mental health, and honestly what's good for society as a whole. Okay, I know that sounds incredibly bleak, but it's not the end of the story. Now that we've kind of diagnosed the problem, let's talk about the cure. How can we actually move forward and build something better? And the fix really has to come from two directions at once. You need the big top-down changes. We're talking about new rules and regulations. And at the same time, you need bottom-up changes, things that we can all do as individuals to change our relationship with this technology. And that top-down change is already starting to happen. A huge example is the EU's Digital Services Act. Now, it's a really big piece of legislation, but the core idea is simple: forcing these massive platforms to finally be transparent about how their systems work, especially when it comes to things like content moderation. It's about pulling back the curtain and demanding more accountability. And it's not just about government rules. Experts are pushing for actual changes to the design of the platforms themselves. Things like, hey, maybe we should ban these manipulative features for minors, or let users hide those stressful like counts. And this is a big one: upholding the idea of freedom of speech, not freedom of reach. That means you can say what you want, but the platform doesn't have to blast your hateful nonsense out to millions of people.
Okay, so what can you do right now? We can all build what you might call digital resilience. Research shows that just cutting your use down to about 30 minutes a day can have a massive positive impact on anxiety and depression. We can also get smarter about what we consume, actually checking a source before we hit share. And maybe the most powerful thing of all, intentionally carving out time for real, offline, phone-in-the-other-room connections. And that leaves us with this one big question to chew on. Right now, the goal is profit. But what if it wasn't? If the main goal of these unbelievably powerful tools wasn't just to make money, what should it be? What could we build then? Just something to think about. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.